This is the Energy to Thrive podcast, episode number 008, with my special guest, Sarica Cernohous. All links and resources you hear in this episode can be found by going to jenniferpowder.com/008.
Welcome to the Energy to Thrive podcast with weight loss and fitness expert Jennifer Powder. Join her each week as she delves into the world of health and what it really takes to create true transformation in your life, both physical and emotional. Through her messages and interviews with special guests, you'll be inspired to live healthier, happier, and hotter lives. Here's your host, a woman who's real, totally transparent, and gets to the heart of the matter, Jennifer Powder.
So I wanted to give a little background on my upcoming guest, Sarica Cernohous. She's a nationally certified practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine, and I wanted to bring somebody on this show to really discuss what some of those benefits are, as Chinese medicine has had a huge impact on my life and my health. She's also written a book. Her book is called The Funky Kitchen, One Soccer Mom's Favorite Traditional Food Techniques and Recipes, and has a 6-week online course which teaches sort of the importance and the practice of traditional food methods, i.e. for a lot of people, we just don't know how to cook anymore. So she goes back to the basics and helps explain and show how to do that and how to have it not be complicated. So let's not wait any longer. Let's just dive right into this interview. Happy listening. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of my Energy to Thrive podcast. And I am beyond excited to share with you a really special woman I met at a conference this summer. And Sarica, hello, hi, welcome, and thank you for being here.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm really glad we made this happen.
I know, me too. So Sarica Cernohous is, I've already shared a bit about you and your story, but I thought, for listeners, it's always such an amazing thing to hear about what created the passion for you to do the work that you do and to learn a bit more in your own words about who you help, how you help, and what brought you to this.
Oh, absolutely. And don't we all have our story,
Yes.
of why we get to a certain place in life. And I was actually thinking about that this morning, and I was fortunate. I was raised in a home where my parents really did, I think, a pretty good number of taking care of us with more natural means. It was the 70s. And so we did have some sugar, but it wasn't like what a lot of other families were eating. And so that was good. And it immediately kind of got me in that frame of mind of the choices we make and how that has an influence on how we feel. And then my parents also did a little bit of alternative practices in terms of acupuncture and chiropractic when I was growing up. So I had exposure to these things. But of course, exposure doesn't mean that you're going to be safeguarded against having things happen in your life. And so what started happening for me when I was a teenager was I really started experiencing a lot of different digestive concerns. And at this point, now I ended up having my appendix removed. I had my gallbladder removed. I had some very significant surgeries, pancreatitis, and very significant digestive issues. And I can look back on it now, and I can see why it happened. But at the time, of course, that wasn't a whole lot clear. But it's like anything, that pain that we experience, it's enough sometimes to get us to change our behavior and to really dig deeper. And that is when I began receiving acupuncture treatment regularly. And I was so impressed by it that I actually started study. And so I went and got my master's degree in traditional Chinese medicine in my 20s after I'd gotten my business degree. And it really uncorked a whole new way of looking at the world for me. It was like someone had given me back a language I had lost. And so cool. I didn't even know it had gone missing. And so I was so grateful for that. So the medicine was foundational, but it also helped me to see the world in a completely different light. It was a 5-year program, and it was very intensive, and it really did shift how I looked at the world. Part of that is food.
Yeah, well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I just got to share a quick story because it's interesting. Like, I did not know much about traditional Chinese medicine. I went to school. I did my kinesiology degree. I did a master's all through my 20s. I spent years in school, and I would I sheepishly admit to say that I probably would have been skeptical if somebody would have told me that, oh, somebody can look at your tongue or feel your pulse and be able to see what's going on or know what's going on in your body. And it was for me a very personal traumatic event that I was at a loss with how to get better. And a friend of mine said, see my husband, who was a TCM doctor. And I was a changed person, and I was hungry and so hungry for the information to understand. And, to anybody out there who sort of is skeptical of alternative therapies, I invite you to really listen, because I was too at one point in my life. I didn't understand. I didn't have the exposure of parents who dove into alternative therapies. It was very foreign to me. I was very, what I would say, Western indoctrinated. I admit freely. So, I wanted to bring you on my show because of your expertise and training, and then also because you're so food oriented, which is something that a lot of my listeners, we were just talking before we got started here about how food has become so confusing, and health and well-being and weight. And I know that you specialize in traditional medicine and in traditionally preparing foods. So can we start talking about that? Because I think I read a stat.
That is really, it's wonderful, because you're exactly right. I gave you a little background. Believe me, it's not like I was raised on a farm. I had a pretty suburban 70s upbringing. We had Cheerios and, those sorts of things. We ate TV dinners. And so, but there was something about food preparation. Even as a kiddo, I knew that there was something about that. And my sister and I, when we were teenagers, we'd come home from school and we would put on PBS and we would watch all the cooking shows after school. And she's now been a chef for 25 years. So we've had this long thread of interest in cooking. And then, of course, also recognizing the power of this thing that we do regularly every day to support us. It's going to have impact on how we feel. And it's a traditional food preparation is something that definitely I dove into, hook, line, and sinker when I continued to have digestive issues, even with receiving traditional medical care and with acupuncture and chiropractic and whatnot. And it was that allowed me to, again, experience the pain so that I had to dig deeper and see what I thought was enough actually wasn't in terms of what we were doing.
So
and
let's just even stop. I'm going to interrupt and stop right there. And just because anybody might be like, well, what are we talking about? What is traditional food preparation? So maybe just share what that actually is.
Absolutely. And so for our family, what it was is I started looking at what we would call ancestral ways of eating. And people would say, well, that's eating more whole foods. And that's a huge start right there. Just getting people to eat more fresh produce, foods that don't come from boxes and bags and cans and that sort of thing. So for me, that was the start, really going back to that. But then beyond that, goes into how those foods are prepared. Yeah. And so when we look at kind of how our ancestors did things, and we see traditional cultures continuing to do today, what it is they will often culture and ferment things. And so for our family, the first thing that I went into with traditional food preparation was making yogurt. And so that was making yogurt at home. And that's our gift for today, is a little yogurt ebook, because I want everybody to do this. To me, it was such an amazing thing to say, okay, I'm going to take some milk and a little bit of this culture starter, and I'm going to put it into a jar inside an incubator. And in the morning, I'm supposed to have yogurt. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. It was such a leap of faith. And I thought, you can't stop sniffing it and making sure everything's okay before you eat it and feed it to your kids. But it was good and it worked out. And so it gave me confidence so that I could continue kind of going down this road. And so the other things that I started looking at were not just, using, whole grains or legumes or something like that, but also how those foods were prepared. And so that would be getting into very simple things like soaking. Soaking's a very simple thing, and it actually makes things much more digestible. And all that, it can be as simple as just letting, the bean or the grain or whatever sit in the water for maybe 12 hours before you cook it. It's just going to make it more digestible.
And I love this, because really what we're talking about is things don't have to be hard. And I think There's been a few books I've read recently, one of them being Sugar, Fat, Salt by Michael Moss, and talking about how convenience foods really came to be. And there's a stat there from one of the head CEOs of the companies of that time who said convenient foods were meant to be just that, once in a while foods. And instead, we now have the standard North American diet, which us Canadians partake in, where it's convenience foods every hour. And so we've gotten so far removed from that form of traditional preparation that we often don't even know what we're talking. So fermenting, soaking,
low heat dehydration's another one. And when we're doing this, what we're doing is we're making food so that they're preserved, but that maintain so much of the good that's there that gets knocked out through the conventional kind of cooking processes of frying or using foods at high heat, this sort of thing. And so it sounds like a lot of disparate threads, but actually what I found in my years of practicing these methods is they all really kind of coincide with one another. Another one is making broth. And I mean, broth has become incredibly popular, and for good reason. I mean, it's such a wonderful way to keep our bodies nourished, and it tastes good. But it's a base that can be used for making things like properly prepared grains and beans, and of course, making soups and things like that.
Okay, I have to jump in really quickly with a funny story. So bone broth, right? The bone broth has become huge in the weight loss world. Like, it really has. And so I was like, oh my God, I'm like, how do I not know what this is? What is this bone broth people are talking about? And so I finally, I go into Google, and I'm like, my mom taught me, right? So my mom had taught me how to take bones and make turkey stock and chicken stock, and, with the vegetables and the bones, and to roast them. And so I learned that from my mom. I had no idea that people didn't know how to do it. I truly thought there was some sort of magical elixir out there which I had no knowledge. And then I was like, seriously, we're talking about making broth?
Making stock.
Is it. Yeah, making stock. But it's an art. Cooking is an art form that we're not, a lot of women who are younger than I am now, they haven't been taught.
No, they haven't. Yeah. And it's one of those things that, as a practitioner, it's very important for me to always kind of get to know the person. I want people telling me like hour by hour how their day looks so I can get a feel on them, because you're exactly right. What it is that one person's understanding, their education around this, their life experience around it can be wholly different than the next person. And so we have to give grace on that. Just give each other some space and just know it's going to be okay. And it's important to meet somebody where they are with that. So it wouldn't be right for me as a practitioner to overwhelm someone, with like 4 or 5 different techniques out the gates. I have to know where they are. I mean, it might be a really big deal for them to give up their cold cereal first thing in the morning. And so, and to put something more nourishing in that place. And so it's true. We come to these things, with a different education. And also it's the terminology. You're exactly right. I mean, bone broth. Oh my gosh. It's got to be a marketing term, I guess.
I know. I just laughed. I mean, I was like, I truly felt so ignorant. And then I was like, oh, making stock? I was like, why didn't I think of that? So if anybody listening, if you have been wondering, or if you could be laughing at us or me right now, I understand that. But yeah, it's so let me go and just sort of ask you, when somebody comes to you, what are some of the typical, and I'm going to sort of not role play, but sort of describe to you a lot of my clients, right? So they're women in their 40s, most often 40s, 50s. They're busy. They've got kids. They've often struggled with lifelong weight loss challenges, and often have a very rooted story that somehow their body isn't working for them. What's your process? How would you take that person and, in your way, sort of guide, teach, help?
Well, when a person is in a state of overwhelm that way, again, I don't want to start with, we're going to be making all your foods from scratch. Now, I know at a biological level, at a cellular level, that would benefit them. But at an emotional level, it's going to cause a state of overwhelm. So I usually just start with just breakfast. I want to see what's happening at breakfast, because this is the thing. If folks are starting their day off in a way that causes their blood sugar to roller coaster throughout the day, then everything we do later is going to be impacted by that. And so if we can just start making some good foundational changes at breakfast, and quite honestly, most people are blowing it at breakfast.
Well, so let's hear what maybe your top three, shifting from either cereal to, let's hear some of your ideas, because that's often we know better, but unless we hear the idea or we see that recipe, we're so confused now with food. We don't know if it's good, bad, right, so I'd love to pick your brain.
Well, and that's the thing too, is, I think we also have to take into consideration that each person is constitutionally, we're different. Yes. And so, I'm in Ayurvedic medicine, East Indian medicine, they would say very Vata type. My tendency is to think a lot and to be on the thinner side. And so that's a person who definitely needs to start their day with a more substantial breakfast, as opposed to someone who is, by their nature, a much fleshier, heavier person. We'd call that person more of a Kapha type or an earth type in Chinese medicine, very fleshy. And they're a person who has more reserves to pull on, so that they can maybe go a little bit longer. They can maybe use a little bit more stimulation. And so I think it's a very important thing for us to recognize our innate constitutions. And there are lots of quizzes out there that you can, begin to do that so that you can discern more about you, which I think is really a good thing to do. But kind of as an overview, generally, one thing that I see that a lot of people do is they start their day off with just having coffee first thing in the morning. And they will often add, creamer or sugar, things like that. And for women, especially women who are beginning to experience fluctuations in their hormonal pattern, and they're fatigued at a very deep level because of the demands of the modern lifestyle that we have, starting your day off with a jolt of caffeine is going to send you on a roller coaster for the rest of the day. And I can almost kind of make that carte blanche statement. And then what happens is it spikes your blood sugar. And so it'll be a couple of hours usually until you might, start feeling that you're getting hungry. But the roller coaster is well underway by that point. And you're going to be playing catch up, feeling snacky, in the late afternoon. You may even find that you're waking up through the night because of this type of adrenal fatigue and taxation on the thyroid that happens with this type of behavior. So I don't tell folks to not have coffee, but I do want it to be after the breakfast. I want it to be part of the breakfast, and not a lot of it either. I really want to see people having a good, nutritious breakfast first thing in the morning, and that isn't cold cereal. And I'm not a person who's against eating grains or anything like that. But again, even if we could maybe move that cereal into like an organic oatmeal with maybe a little bit of clarified butter or a little bit of coconut oil on it, maybe have an egg or two on the side, something that is substantially going to hold that person so that they feel very stabilized in their blood sugar.
So I can just, you just basically totally without, and she doesn't, so Sarica doesn't know this about me, right? So you don't know this about me, but you basically just textbook diagnosed exactly my past 6 years ago.
Oh my God.
Completely. So I had 2 little kids, sleep deprived from nursing. I nursed both my kids for a long time. I was starting a new business, not this one back then. So financially stressed, emotionally stressed, and I would make them perfect balanced breakfast, and I would drink coffee. And I was carrying 30-ish, 5-ish, I stopped counting, extra pounds. And exactly what you said was exactly what I experienced. Played catch up all day, snacked all day, had the adrenal fatigue. I wasn't making DHEA, which is a hormone, was a precursor for testosterone. Totally deficient, depleted in all of that. All of it. So if you're wondering, I can tell you that, I spent a lot of money to figure out what the hell was wrong with me, because I felt like I was going crazy. And it was my first time really connecting I got degrees in this stuff, right? But it was my first time really connecting the pieces between what I was putting in and how I felt. So
that is it. And you know what? And we have to honor this. Culturally, that is what we were raised with. It's what everyone does around us. And so there isn't a lot of information that we get coming back to us saying, oh, don't do that. In fact, we have to buck the system to do this. I mean, you become kind of the weirdo. Yeah. But as I told my kids, I've said, you know what, the world has gotten weird. And so we kind of counterbalance that. And honestly, by the time you get to your 40s and 50s, it doesn't.
You don't care anymore. Yeah, that's the best thing about 40. You just don't give a shit as much anymore. It doesn't matter. You just want to feel good. Like, I'll do whatever it takes to feel better. Thank God, right? And thank God for people like you who are sharing this. And like what I have found, so you've touched on so many points. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to
I know we
back.
have so much to talk about.
I know. You'll be back. So one of the things you talked about was the emotional taxation of the modern day woman. I'm sort of paraphrasing, but
No, that's
I hear it all the time. It sounds like you hear it all the time. I see it even right now. So we're, in that, fall season, and everybody, when you ask, how are you? Oh, busy. It's crazy activities. It's nuts. So, and we have this dialogue about what life is like. And what do you do with that?
Well, again, this is the counterpoint we have to that, because there is something in our puritanical society that says busy is better, and that's where your value lies. And we have to say no to that, because the nature of a woman, when we look at the traditional Chinese philosophy, and I hope everyone's can think of this, that yin yang symbol where we've got the black and we've got the white, but in the white there's a little dot of the black, and in the black there's a little dot of the white. And what this is this is the yin essence, but there's a little yang in there. This is the yang essence, and there's a little yin in there. Women, in our nature, our essence is to be predominantly yin, which is the dark, receptive, quiet, female, soft, sleepy, but kind energy. And we have grown up in a society that is very yang, very man, very masculine, very hot, fiery. And what we're doing when we start our day off with coffee as a woman is we're trying to keep up with that. And it is not in our essence to do so. Some women are a little more yang than others. Some are a little more yin than others. But at our essence as women, we are that darker, more receptive, quieter, more reflective aspect to the human nature. And so when we push and we push and we push this way, we are denying who we are. And so that in itself is going to further burn our energy, because then we get frustrated. And that is no way to live. And so for me, I know a few years ago, I just got into what I think is the most excellent habit. I get up in the morning, and before I do anything, I will meditate for a few moments. I read some spiritual book that's important to me. And then I do 5 sun salutations, because in that yang effort, in my 20s, one of the things that I did, as well as having a few organs removed, is I also blew out my back and ended up with back surgery. But it was so much tension I was holding because I was not honoring myself. I mean, I can totally see the pattern for what it was. And so now here I am, I'm 45, and now it's time to knock that off. And it has been so fantastic. So what I try and get people to do is to, especially women, but men too, but I really try and get folks to start carving out just a little bit of that time for themselves and allow the deliciousness of how that feels kind of take over. I feel completely off kilter if I don't start my day that way now. It has been one of the big movers of the dial for me.
Okay, so let's stop there for one sec, because this is huge. And because what I hear all the time is, women we're smart, we're educated, we're often very intuitive, we'll know better and not do better. So somehow we'll have this inner knowing that life is just, it's not adding up. Like we can feel it. And yet we seem very unwilling to change patterns. I know I was stuck in a pattern, and it was rooted in a lot of my value comes from what I do, not who I am. Right. So you mentioned that. And so so for you and I, it sounds like each of us have had these moments of pain in our life where it's prompted the deeper exploration to find an answer, to get relief from the pain. So what do you say to a woman listening right now who maybe hasn't hit that rock bottom or will do anything to escape the pain, but wants to be proactive about it? Let's really make this simple and, handhold somebody here. So you've got a morning routine, right? Fact. So people listen to Sarica. If you create a morning routine, I have honestly, transparently, I've struggled with this right? Because then sometimes I'm going to bed too late. I'm sleeping in, and then I'm not rushing. So so it has to be sort of a real inner commitment to a reset. How do you do that? How do you start that?
You make it happen for 21 days.
Great.
That's it. I mean, you don't make it an hour-long thing. Believe me.
Say that again. Say this again, because this is huge. This is huge.
No, I'm not joking when I say 5 minutes. For years, I was at the 5-minute mark. I couldn't get past that. And it was in part because I didn't have good tools around meditation, which I do have now. And I used that, and it was a game changer. But it was my continued commitment to knowing it was what I needed, even though I wasn't quite doing it right, And am I still? No, that's nonsense. I mean, there's never a language of doing it right. All I know is it is something that at this point, I have to make myself stop. I'm like, oh, I better get going. Yeah. I really do have things. I have to get the kids out the door. And so just 3 weeks of 5 minutes of just sitting away. I think away from the bed. I think if you stay in bed, you might fall back asleep. I think it's, I think because we are tired, I think it is important for us to pull ourselves out of that state and recognize that rest, conscious rest, is a whole lot different than collapsing in bed. Yeah. And so for me, it is going. I have a little pillow I sit on. I make sure sunlight gets on me. If I can make that happen, I want that on me, that energizing force. We are creatures of the solar system. And so I want that on me, and just allow that 5 minutes. And it's going to maybe feel uncomfortable at the beginning. It's going to feel like, what am I doing? This is a waste of time, possibly. I could be sleeping. I mean, there's a whole lot of things you could be thinking. But at some point, you're going to find that you begin to appreciate the way that you feel when you take that time for yourself. And you might feel that straight away. You may honor that.
Okay. I love this. I love this because so many people think that these changes in life need to be massive, whether it's exercising or going from processed to completely homemade organic. And the stretches seem so big that they do nothing. And so what I love is that you're saying, here, listen up, right? Like 5 minutes, quiet your mind, maybe do some light stretching, do a yoga pose if you know it. Don't drink your coffee until after you've had breakfast, and have a good breakfast. Like, am I kind of...
Yeah, these are you summed up my morning.
And it sounds like a really nice morning. Like, nothing in there sounds like me having to, drink gross tasting herbs or potions or, buy anything that's going to be like, it's all very doable.
It's super doable. And that's how we have to start and give ourselves that grace. Yeah. And the thing of it is that I do set aside, I get up before the kids do. So that I can have that time. Now, they're well trained at this point. They're 10 and 11 now. And they know that if my bedroom door is closed, that means I'm still meditating, and they're not going to step in and bug me. Right. But I really do try and just have that extra maybe 15, 20 minutes before they're awake, just so it's for sure as settled as can be. I love that feeling. And the morning time is the yin energy of the day. It's, we're moving out of night and it's the building of the yang for the day. And so if we can do that in a way that nurtures our essence, we are going to have more to pull on for the yang, fiery, active movements of the day. So it's really creating a good foundation for ourselves every day.
I love that. I totally love that. So now I'm gonna jump, because I think that this is amazing, and you clearly have so much to share. One of the things that you and I were talking about before we started the interview was around this idea of metabolic balancing. Mm-hmm. So, and like knowing that, again, food's confusing. Often we're using food to numb, fill, avoid, distract. Can you share a little bit around what that is and why it's important?
Well, one of the beautiful things about the theory of traditional Chinese medicine, the paradigm of it, is that all of the organ systems are associated with different emotions. And so when I see someone who is really frustrated, I'm going to be looking at the tone of their wood element, which is the liver and gallbladder. When we see someone who's always wanting to maybe snack on carbohydrate-rich foods, what they're doing there is they're trying to ameliorate the earth element, which is, it has to do with digestion. And one of the ways I know a person is needing some balancing with that earth element is they may ruminate a lot. They're thinking and thinking and thinking. And one of the ways we try and stuff that is we actually put food in our mouth to kind of calm that thinking down. And that does have a yin action, a sedating effect on us. But that yin action, that sedating effect, also has a sedating effect when we're always putting food in our mouth, has a sedating effect on the body's energy. It gives us a quick little boost of carbohydrate, but over time, very quickly over time, what it does is it stifles the digestive fire of our body. We never get an opportunity to fully step into digesting a given meal. We're always kind of bringing something down the chute. And when we do that, we can get bloated. We can just feel kind of ooky in our bones and our joints. Nothing feels fluid, and it's because we just kind of continue to flood the system this way. We never give proper opportunity.
And I'm picturing such a great visual in my head right now of just this constant churning in my gut. And one of the things we talked about is, so often women will think that their bodies are broken or that metabolisms aren't working. And really what you just said is you're flooding the system. So just like you have a perfectly great car, if you're and trying to start the car and you flood it, and you keep trying to start it, like the car is fine. You've flooded it.
That's exactly it. And so what you've done is you've given a lot of yang, and now you're flooded in a yin.
Yeah. I love this yin yang thing. I love it. I totally love it. It's perfect.
So it is true, though. And so to allow this kind of fallow period where you're not sipping on coffee, you're not sipping on tea, you're not taking a sip of some kind of a diet beverage or anything like that. The only thing in between is water. And if a person can't do that for a solid 5 hours or so, then what that says to me is that their previous meal wasn't as nutritiously dense as it should have been, because we are designed to be able to pull on our reserves. And all of us have a fatty tissue that we're designed to pull on. So when that's not happening, what that says to me is you're not eating nutritiously enough. We've got to bring better nutrition into your diet so that you're not going to feel like you need to put something in your mouth every 2 hours or so.
And this links right back to your traditional food preparation, because one of the things that I know from my work and my research is we are chronically overeating and massively undernourished.
Yes, it's huge. That is absolutely that. And so going back to the good old bone broth, one of the things that's so great about that is, broth is something when we drink broth, or if it's used in the cooking of whole grains or something, it brings such a depth of flavor and a sense of nourishment and fulfillment. It is a truly visceral and emotional feeling that we get from something like that. And I want you to compare that to eating like a snack bar, like a granola bar.
Yeah.
It's like night and day difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to have a trick question for you. So tell me the difference between making your own stock, though, and then what you can buy in a Tetra Pak. For people who are out there and busy, can you purchase this and get any of the same benefits, or does it need to go back to the art of making it yourself?
Again, I don't want to make people crazy.
Yeah.
That's not what I was put on this earth to do. I'm here to support.
Yeah.
And so if that is where somebody starts, then that's where they start. The thing that I see as part of the issue around that is that it's not going to have the fatty acid composition. It's just not going to have the fat that would be there. And that fat is incredibly healing, incredibly nourishing to the cell membrane of every cell in our body. And so that's an important player that's not going to be there. But if that's where someone starts, that's where they start.
And what about some of the bone broth? There's now actually bone broth powders that are being marketed, which I know that some of the sources are organic. Again, is that sort of like meet me where I'm at? And then
I think it is. To me, it really is. And this is the thing. I mean, a lot of people do live rurally. They live remotely. But my golly, if you live in a city, there are people who are making these products for you to get fresh. Now you're
farmers markets, et cetera.
Farmers markets, yes. We have a couple restaurants here in northern Arizona that we can, I will tell patients, please go in there. I want you to get some broth and just go ahead and get like a quart of it, and let's just get you started on it. So there are ways to, it's always that good, better, best.
Yeah.
And I think the powder is nice if you're traveling, that sort of a thing. But that's going to be dictating what you're eating, as opposed to you saying, I think I really need to focus a little bit more on maybe the collagen aspect. So the broth I'm going to make for myself is going to have kind of more cartilaginous tissue. Or a person might say, gosh, I've heard so much about liver being good for you. Well, maybe I'll put some liver into my broth. Or I want a chicken broth. And, there's just,
so much around it.
So many different ways you can do when you do it on your own.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious because.
No, that's okay.
Yeah. Yes. It's one of those questions my listeners ask, right? Like, what do I do? Like, is it okay? Is it not? And like, even with the all organic versus not, like sometimes it's like, wow, if you have these hard and fast rules that if the only way you can get healthy is to eat all organic, well, then why even bother? Because I can't do that. Whereas every little baby step.
Every little baby step counts. It does. And the thing that I will say about the organic question is I always direct folks, if we have to choose between like, am I going to buy organic produce or organic animal products? Please make it the organic animal products because you are eating at the top of the food chain. Everything that animal's been exposed to is going to be in its tissues, and most notably its fat and its bones. And so when we're making a broth from, like, say, a commercially raised chicken, that's going to be rich in things that you don't want there. And so, again, I don't want to make people crazy, but to me, it's worth it. And oh my gosh, I have been to some rural places, and it's amazing to me how I can always locate what I need. And we can always order online as well. Yeah. And so, and to get to know the farmers in your area is a great thing too. And I just want to put a plug out right now for an outfit called the Weston A. Price Foundation, and westonaprice.org is their website, and that will connect you with a chapter in your area that will help you to source locally from farmers and ranchers, so you can get the highest quality foods in your area. Yeah, so
awesome,
I just had to plug that.
So for my American listeners, fantastic. I don't know if that's going to apply to Canada too.
It's worldwide. It's worldwide.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, I did not know this. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have like scratched the surface of honestly so many different things, and I think we could go deep dive into adrenals and thyroid, but we won't for today. Instead, what I'd love for you to share is, how do people find out more about you, and how can we get access to your free How to Make Yogurt book? Please sort of let's hear, and we'll also have it in the show notes, whether you're watching the video or listening to the podcast. Know that there'll be a link to my website where you can access all of these resources, like so everything will be there too. And let's just hear it so that it's verbal and out there too.
Absolutely. Well, you're right. The button for the yogurt book is going to be right there.
Okay,
and so
perfect.
Please take advantage of that, because it's actually, it's mostly the yogurt chapter from my book, The Funky Kitchen.
Awesome.
And so, and then The Funky Kitchen is available on Amazon, and so you can find it there. That's the book. And then I created a 6-week online course around that. And so that is called Fresh, Fun, and Flavorful in the Funky Kitchen.
Awesome.
And that allows people to dive more deeply into, all of this. And folks really appreciate how I just take it step by step, little baby steps as we go along. And I engage with, please, let's do it. Let's try it. We won't know how it goes for you until we do. And so I've just gotten really good feedback on that class. And then kind of like the place to meet me is naturallylivingtoday.com. And that's the blog that I've had for a good long while.
Awesome. And I can say that I've had a peek through it because I was sort of cyber stalking you, as we do in this day and age. And there's some really great resources on there and really well-written articles that are super informative. And it's been awesome. So, Sarica, thank you so much. I know I really could talk for hours, but I think I just want to leave our listeners today, or whenever you're listening to this, with the idea that baby steps add up. It doesn't have to be hard. Little shifts, little decisions to make little changes can have profound impact and effect on your health and well-being. And ultimately, we're alive. We might as well try to feel good while we're living this life, and bring what we can bring. And women, I've got just a real soft spot for, I am a woman, but just for the journey we take, and know that as I've gone through my 30s into my 40s, challenges have changed. And I'm looking for different resources to support me in so many different ways now, because I was so tired of that young energy that I was, driving myself to live at or live with, I guess.
That's right. It'll burn you out. So it's so true. And this is the thing about taking those tiny steps is you get to feeling a little bit more energy, and it helps you to feel good about taking another little step. So it builds. It's an upward spiral.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's it, because often we're so tired, we don't have the energy to start. And yet that one step will create more energy. So yeah, perfect final soundbite there. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much. If you've liked this podcast, if you've liked this interview, please like it and share it. Definitely go onto your Facebook page and let people know to give a shout out or to check in and tune in. We're back with more great interviews in the weeks ahead. So thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here and to share these awesome people with you. Take care, everybody. And remember, it's our job to try to live with energy to thrive. Bye for now.